of you holding the doll?
Yeah, I want a good one too. Oh, here. It's like a...
This is much better looking than the doll today.
Oh yeah, the Amigos. I wanted to, you know, when you have time, you can go take a look at the figures, the whole set.
Oh,
you
here.
like? Okay. Here we go. You know.
Why don't you have a green book?
Yeah.
One more.
Yeah, one more.
I'll let you go.
In fact, you hear. Listen in the movie. I got off 2 rounds to warn you.
Yeah, me. That's why it makes me.
They don't hold it.
And, you know, when everything was wrong, they put like M16s on them instead of those big old weapons, you know, the big old rifles. I sculpted the rifle, the Ape rifle, like stuff with the pistol, all this stuff, so they look, you know, more like the real life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
I'm so glad you could make it. You know, I was just watching Planet of the Apes. Like I said, this all holds up very well. Great job.
Yeah, I'm doing a play. Hudson Theater.
Oh, really? I'm not sure if I...
Starting at approximately 2:45, it's going to be fun for the whole family. Many items donated by our guests today. Auction items displayed in our main lobby, so be sure to stop by, check them out, and go down.
Hamburg, man. Still out there? Is he going to show up there?
Just a reminder, Star Wars Trilogy,
He never
Shadow of the Empire, today at 3:45 to 4:45.
That is. That's exactly. Right there to the robot. I
Yeah, but it says that. It says everything else is there.
Did you see my credit? My name? You did?
I saw you. We saw it. We saw it. We saw it. We watched it.
Well, hey, what is this one?
Better be.
Coming up at 3:45 to 4:45, the Star Wars Trilogy and Shadows of the Empire. Please stop by and say hello to Richard Eaton, Robocop from the TV series, Paul Carr, Russell Johnson, Rex Friesen, Steve Carl, Joy Harmon, and Barbara Lee. Francine York from Batman.
Olympian wrestling.
Yeah, I don't know. At first the idea of hell.
Imagine all these super toes. It's gonna land.
The Empire is here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're in the final moments of the StarCon 96 fun auction.
Burbank captain. You buy, whatever. I could even work out a deal. We didn't want to cash up front. That I know they sell there. So we can maybe work something out. This is like crazy.
So what is your name?
Legit. Why don't I write it on the back of your? You paint it.
Got it.
Martian hell or high, my man.
Life is taller than I am.
One day you'll be as tall as a king.
Oh, shit. Oh, God. I do that with that.
Yeah, we thought the couldn't use insurance.
The water's in the way of Bobby.
That's intentional. How'd that look?
Buck, put your sign in front. So
I gotta read this. You know who you are. Turn it around so they can see who you are. That's better. There you go.
All right, y'all. Thanks for, can anyone hear me besides me?
no.
Okay, hello. Thanks for coming, y'all. My name is Eric Green, and
Yay.
as some of you know, I'm the writer of a new book about Planet of the Apes called Planet of the Apes as American Myth, which is a book that looks at how the Planet of the Apes series and the television shows and the movies dealt with and confronted the political conflict of the 60s and 70s and addressed racial conflict in Vietnam and the civil rights movement and the Watts riots and a lot of the social and political unrest that was going through the country at the time. And I'm joined on this panel by the people that actually made Planet of the Apes happen. And I want to introduce them, and then they'll say a few words about their experience with the apes, and then take questions from you all. And I'm available to answer questions too if anyone has about the apes films, the TV shows, or the book, or myself, or the weather conditions outside, or anything else on your mind. First, we have Austin Stoker, who starred as McDonald in Battle for the Planet of the Apes, and was also the voice of Jeff Allen, if I remember correctly, the astronaut from the Return to the Planet of the Apes cartoon series. And next to him is Boot Coleman, who starred as Dr. Zaius in the Planet of the Apes television series. Next to him is Buck Kartalian, who you remember as Julius from Planet of the Apes. He was the guard for Charlton Heston for the better part of the movie. He was also the gorilla Frank in Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Next to him is Bobby Porter, who starred as Cornelius, Roddy McDowell's son, in Battle for the Planet of the Apes, and was also on 2 episodes of the Planet of the Apes television series, the pilot episode, Escape from Tomorrow, and an episode called The Good Seeds. And next to him we have Bill Blake, who is an actor and stuntman who was in the Surgeon episode of the television series, and was also licensed by 20th Century Fox during the 70s to do live Planet of the Apes road shows and performances with his partner, Paula Christ. So, we're all available to take questions, and I guess I'd like to ask the first one of Buck Kartalian. What was it like to beat up on Charlton Heston? We probably all like to do it on occasion, but you got an opportunity.
I enjoyed it.
Good man.
Yeah, in fact, he complained to the director I wasn't hitting him hard enough.
Is that right?
Yeah, so I hit him harder.
Well, if everyone would like to just start with Austin and go down the line and just say, you know, a few words, I guess the most memorable thing that comes to your mind about working on the 8 shows and what you'd like to start off with. So we'll begin with Austin.
Well, the thing that I always remember is Paul Williams, the songwriter, singer-songwriter, who played Virgil, the know-it-all orangutan. And being a performer and singer and everything, he loved to do practical jokes. We set up one day at Fox Ranch over there to do some scenes, and there was a scene, the meeting of the council, and all of the apes are down here on the lower level, and the orangutans are up there on the ledge, sort of a crest. And when the director's ready to shoot the scene, and he says, he's from England, J.D. Thompson, he said, "Is everybody ready? Action!" And when he said that, all of the orangutans stood up forward in his direction and started doing the Supremes. I don't forget. Of course, everybody laughed. They had to stop shooting for about 10 minutes. It was cracking up. And that's my most memorable. Thank you. Now to see these guys in this monkey suit doing the Supreme was hysterical.
Well, I think I got the job because Morris Evans' clothes fit me. I've been in his company in New York. He had nothing to do with this, of course. And but I remember exchanging notes with him. But I can't remember any really terrific things happening, except that I had to get up about 3:30 in the morning to be in the studio at 5 o'clock to be ready at 8. Frank Westmore made me up every day I worked. Is there any questions that you might have that I could try to answer?
Actually, I have a question about that. What kind of advice or suggestions did Maurice Evans pass on about playing Dr. Zaius?
Just said, have a good breakfast. got very good at it, and usually I was through by lunchtime. So,
Buck, how about you?
Oh, that's me. Hello. What can I tell you? Yeah, it took us 4 hours every morning to put our makeup on. And because we were the principals, we had our own appliances. Around the eye, the nose, the chin and the teeth, and all had to be exactly matted together with little hairs all around. And it took 4 hours. And it was like top secret. I mean, no one was allowed on the set. Oh, it's a closed set. Couldn't go on there. And the appliances, they got rid of them right after. It was like, you know, it was top secret, big government, secret government work, you know. And wait, you know, just another picture we're doing, you know. We didn't know what we're doing. So, as I said, Franklin Schaffner was the director, and I read for him, and he hired me, partly because I was short, because they wanted short actors. Of course, there's a lot of short actors in Hollywood. I find out today, when I go out, they come out of the woodwork. You know, and I've lost a lot of parts because I was short. I've gotten a few parts because I was short, but I lost a lot of parts because I was short. I want to tell you, I'm not short for anything but a professional basketball player, right? Hey! They don't understand these casting people. Anyway, let me tell you, it was a very interesting experience for me. I remember I worked 2 weeks inside. I never was outdoors. And of course we couldn't eat, we drank through a straw, because you couldn't go taking your makeup off, your appliances. And he was a strange director, Franklin Schaffner. He directed Patton, I think before or after, I don't remember. But he directed some big pictures. He knew the camera well. But he didn't like to talk to actors too much, you know. And some actors say, tell me, am I good? Am I doing good? Am I doing well? What do you want me to do? You know, Jim, you've got to do something and do it. That's it. And if, I guess if it's bad, he'll tell you, but he never told anyone anything. Anyway, just one time we were ready to shoot this scene. He says, all right, we'll open up on Julius. Yeah, I think you knew my name was Buck. Anyway, we'll open up on Julius here. And I said, I got an idea. I said, Mr. Schaffner, I said, oh, I have an idea. Since the camera's going to open up on me on this scene, why don't I be smoking a cigar? And he looked at me, gave me a dirty look. He gave me a dirty look. All right. And the way I look at it, I'm an actor. And if I have an idea, I tell the director, if he doesn't listen to it, I keep my mouth shut the rest of the time. Because, hey, if it's good and he lets me do it, he's going to get credit for it, you know? So I kept quiet, didn't say anything. We had 2 rehearsals, and he said, all right, we're going to shoot the scene now. The camera's ready. Somebody get Buck a cigar. So I got the cigar. And the wonderful thing about being in an Apes costume, there are some nice, interesting aspects of it. You notice so much. It's incredible. You think no one else can see you, but you can see everything. It's like you're hiding behind something, and you observe more. You're so aware of things. And it was an interesting thing. My wife said, but I'm going to say it anyway. There was a lady who understudied Kim Hunter. And as I said, there was a lot of apes, and they're all about my size. They used to come in, all of the girls, extras and everything, and go around the place. And as they come in, and one day she stopped, we just sat down, and she came, sat with the apes, and she was talking to me. And so we chatted a little bit. And then the next day I came in, and she came in, she came right over to me. I said, how'd you know it was me? She said, I could tell from your eyes. The only thing that's showing is my eyes, they were mine, and everything else was covered. I said, oh, that's interesting. So we sat and we talked, and you know what? After a couple of days, she started to like me. You know that? She was falling in love with a gorilla. So all you other guys out there, remember, beauty's only skin deep. She always wished she never knew what I looked like. And I never wanted to do. I wanted her to know me the way I really was, a gorilla.
And Buck, I suppose she was the girl of your dreams, wasn't she?
Sorry, it was just sitting there. I had to.
Well, I'm just glad you made that pun and not me.
Yeah, well, I was next in line. I got credit for it. I guess the most memorable thing about Planet of the Apes I have to share is the fact that 23 years later, we're all still talking about it. Look at you. Look at what you're doing. You're sitting here talking to a bunch of old farts, talking about what we did 23 years ago. And I'm not the oldest part here. This is amazing. I really appreciate all of you taking the time to make certain that people don't forget all the hard work that we did so many years ago. I worked on harder shows. And I've been very blessed in the 25 years I've been doing a lot of costume character work. And it's just amazing to me that people still cling to these kinds of projects that we worked really, really hard at. We just figured the producers would make some money and they'd sell a couple of toys and off we'd go to the next deal, the next job. But no one ever expected this kind of a show would end up creating people that I knew years later writing books about it and conventions about it. It boggles my mind. So I do have one little experience to share about Battle. On the very last day of the show, it took us 3.5 hours to get into the makeup, 3.5, 4 hours to get into the makeup. It took us about an hour to get out of it, unless we were really in a hurry. So on the very last day of the show, we were out at 20th Century Fox Ranch just out in Malibu Canyon. And I was doing stage play. I was a college kid. I was a guy who was over 18 who could play roles of children and get around the child labor laws. And I was doing stage play in college at the time. And we had to get back to rehearsal that evening to the dress rehearsal for a show called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. It's a Shakespearean spoof. And so I decided to take the makeup with me. Rather than take the extra hour to get out of the makeup, I would just get into my street clothes and drive home. Well, I'd drive from Malibu Canyon to Newport Beach with an ape face on. And I probably caused about 3 or 4 accidents on the way home. But by the time the 5th movie had come around, you know, Southern California had kind of gotten used to apes, and they went, oh yeah, it's another one of those ape guys, you know. So I got to the theater at UC Irvine, and the lights had already dimmed, and we were 5 minutes into the dress rehearsal, and I played the king of the tragedians. I did a very dramatic part, and we were all actors playing actors in the play. And I had, at that point in time, forgotten that I had come home with the ape makeup on. So I run through the theater, get backstage, I hear my cue, and I walk on stage and I start delivering my Shakespearean lines, and all of a sudden everybody is just cracking up. And I went, this is serious stuff. What are you laughing at me for? And I went, oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's still on. So then I figured, well, I better take some, you know, make some fun of this. And after the rehearsal, which was a complete waste of time, I went around all the girls' dorms and started climbing trees and knocking on windows. And I got a few dirty looks too. Didn't fall in love with any of them though. And so then, you know, the day had been a very long day. I had gotten up at about 2:30 in the morning and gone to work and come home. And by now, it's nearly 24 hours that I've been wearing this makeup. It's pretty permanent by now. And I got home. I was living at home at the time, and we had Dutch doors in the house. And I looked around and I lost my keys to the house for some reason. And so I figured I had to wake somebody up in the house, and I had to wake my mother up. So I'm knocking on the door. She finally comes up. She doesn't do well for the first 15 minutes after she wakes up anyway. She still doesn't. She opens at the top of this Dutch door, and all she sees is this ape staring at her, and she falls straight back into the couch, dead, unconscious. It just freaks her out. So it was a face even my mother couldn't love, but I guess you did for 23 years, and I really appreciate your support. Thanks. If you have any questions when we're all done here, make certain that you ask the questions that you came here to ask. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody. You know, I have kind of a sort of a very strange position on this panel because I came to Planet of the Apes first as a fan. So I've gotten to see this on 2 sides. And I was struck by this at a very, very sensitive age when you're kind of coming to age and you're learning things in high school and you're looking for a craft for a life profession. I was 16 years old when this came out, and I was completely struck down in a very positive way by this picture. It just completely engrossed me, and I wanted to know more about it. So I was already heading toward, I think, a career in the motion picture industry because I was doing these little films when I was 10, you know, the little family 8mm camera. And something said that I was going to be successful if I wrote that John Chambers created the makeup, that he would answer my letter, like a lot of kids do. And you know what? He did. And I showed him some crude pictures of work I had attempted, and he wrote back and he sent me appliances from the movie. And I told some people in this cast here, on this DS right here, right now, that the reason I'm here is because of many of these people here, because they did a very positive thing for me at an impressionable age. I didn't know it at the time, but just a few years later, I had a part on the Planet of the Apes television series and went on to promote Planet of the Apes under license for 20th Century Fox all across the country in the mid-70s. And it was one of the most successful roadshow promotion things that had ever been done with just two of us, a young lady and myself, Paul and Chris, just going around and doing this Planet of the Apes thing. So I, as I said, got to see this thing from two different levels. Sitting down there or sitting at my television or movie screen, and suddenly sitting up here, and I feel kind of like now the chain is complete. To this day, I have young people coming to me from 20 years ago and telling me, we saw you, or I saw you on stage when I was 10 years old, and now I'm in this business thanks to you. So, gentlemen, I tip my hat to you, and the chain has now continued one generation further down the line.
I can say there's been yet another link in the chain, because I was inspired as a kid watching all these folks in the movies and the television series, and just loved Planet of the Apes, and then was inspired by seeing Bill and all his work. And actually, I met Bill when I was about 10 years old at a science fiction convention, and met a lot of my friends through Bill that were also going to conventions at the time. So, everyone here inspired Bill, and they all inspired me, and I just got a call from a student at Cal State Long Beach who was working on a paper about Planet of the Apes and wanted to consult with me and consult with my book about it. So now there's another generation of people that, that we're passing the ape torch on to. So,
I'm sorry, people, but we're never going to go away.
There is something about Planet of the Apes. I mean, you look at a lot of the stuff from the 60s and 70s, and I'm sure this will be the case in 20 years for stuff from the 80s or 90s, and it doesn't hold up all that well. It's not just that the special effects technology has advanced, but that, the stories aren't as good, or it seems as very amateurish by today's standards. But the Apes films and the Apes series, for the most part, hold up very well. They were very intelligently made. There was a lot of craftsmanship in the acting and in the writing and in the production design and the direction, and they still work very well. And truthfully, I wouldn't have wasted much of my time and a lot of my energy to write a book about these films and these shows had they just been kind of cheesy B-movies that didn't stand the test of time. They still work very well. I was just at a film festival up in Berkeley with 300 Planet of the Apes fans, including one of them who is here from San Francisco today just for this. The response was still very positive. People still laughed at all the right jokes, and they still really enjoyed it. And it's 23 years since the last Apes film, and 21 years since the cartoon series and the television series were over. And people are still really liking this, and there's a big resurgence of popularity. And it holds up very, very well. And the craftsmanship and the quality and the care that was taken decades ago still rings true today, and that's one of the things that makes it such an enduring part of the culture. So I don't know if anyone has specific questions they would like to ask, or if you'd like me to ask some questions, but if anyone has anything on their mind, now's the time to speak up.
This question is for Mr. Stoker, Mr. Coleman, and Mr. Porter. Prior to Battle for the Planet of the Apes, did you see the movies prior to that, and what was your opinion of them before you got the jobs?
Okay, I'll go first. No, I had not seen the movies prior to being in the one that I was in. I knew of them, but for some reason I was always, like, even now, I go to the movies, I have to be taking an effort to go. I'm always so busy. And my wife was always there, let's go see some, let's go see some. So I didn't really get to see any of them. And when I finally got the job to be in Battle for the Planet of the Apes, and I said to the producer, well, can I see at least one of the movies? Maybe the one that precedes this, that you're going to do now, so I can see what this is all about. But I only know from word of mouth what they're about. I've not seen it. So they're screened. Which was the one just before Battle? They screened that for me in a screening room, a 20th Century Fox. And I sat there in the room just by myself in Century City watching the film. I'd never seen the film before. I knew of it. So I saw the film, I had an idea, the sort of the chronology or the transitions or whatever from one story to the next. See where my character would fit in. And I was a little bit confused because I didn't understand where was the present, where was the future, where was the past. I said, you know what, I'm going to forget about this, get my script, learn the script, and just do it. And that's what I did.
In observing the film and being in the film, were you tuned into any of the social implications or the political implications like Eric talks about in his book now? Did any of that hit you then?
Oh yeah, I was quite aware that there were social implications. I didn't, get into it deeply or, like, this is what it's about. Like, they were quite apparent to me. But I looked at it purely from the standpoint of filmmaking and the art of it and the entertainment part of it and, the acting part of it. I didn't go into the analytical part of, the social aspects or anything. I was aware that they were there. The militancy and the civil rights thing and all that. Mm-hmm. I could see that. But that was like a different study. I didn't bother with that. I just looked at it from an entertainment standpoint.
Bobby, how about you all? Can you tell us beforehand?
I saw the original picture. I saw the original picture. And what year was that?
68.
It was made in 67.
It came out in like March 68.
It made an impression on me. An excellent picture, of course. And I saw none of the others until the series came out. That came up out of the blue as far as I was concerned. So I haven't seen any of that. I remembered it. I remembered the Evans and the part they were interested in me for. And no, beyond that I've still not seen all the pictures. I think I've seen two.
Yeah, I'd seen the original, and it made a big impression on me. I was in high school at the time, and obviously most of us remember the Statue of Liberty scene at the end of the original. And I went, wow, this is pretty cool. It was groundbreaking in its makeup. Johnny Chambers obviously has been very well documented for what he did with this. He took existing technology to another level, and I've been blessed in that since that time I've been steadily employed in this business, and because I either double children doing stunts or I play custom character roles, I've been blessed by this anonymity that I maintain. But I've seen the metamorphosis of special effects makeup since that point in time. And I remember I have a photograph that I brought with me today where Jimmy Phillips, God rest his soul, was making me up. And I remember in that same room, that same day, where people like Stan Winston and Tommy Berman and others who have become millionaires in their craft. And had Jimmy not been, unfortunately killed in a plane crash a few months later, he probably would have been among them. There were 5 really very talented makeup artists on that film, and my stunt double and his father were also on that plane. I lost a number of friends. I should have been sitting on the plane next to him. The Wolfer plane crash. They killed 36 people. I should have actually been on that plane, but I was working for a Disney film at the time and missed that particular call. I had seen the original, and I had seen a couple of the others, and I had actually been working on at school when the 4th film, Conquest, was being filmed, because they actually used UC Irvine as a background. And I remember looking at my organic chemistry lab and seeing film crew drive up, and I turned to my partner and I said, "You finished, I've got someplace to go." And I walked down, and I had just done a film prior to that called The Pasadena Adventure. And it was the same crew, same guys from Fox who were putting this film together. And I was invited to lunch, and I met J.B. Thompson at lunch as a college kid, pre-med college kid. And I didn't have any idea that a year later I'd be working underneath him as Cornelius. So it was really very ironic twist of fate. But in our business, all these guys here will attest to the fact that a lot of this is just plain luck, being at the right place at the right time. I've literally gotten jobs in this business because, like some of these others, I was just standing at the right place at the right time, and that was one of these situations.
Can any of you speak of the memories you all have, as the three of you that were in the film, any of the memories you might have of Arthur Jacobs, who was the man that produced the 5 Apes? It was his hard work and tenacity that got the original film made, because it went around the studios for years trying to get Planet Apes made, and no one wanted to take the project. They didn't want to risk a lot of money on some crazy movie about talking apes. No one was willing to do it, and Jacobs kept pushing, and he put together a team with Rod Serling, and then he got Franklin Schaffner and Charlton Heston involved, and it was really his determination that eventually got it happening, and then he spearheaded that one, and then watched over the other sequels as they were made, and then passed away right after Battle was released. But I'm wondering if any of you have any memories of working with him and what he was like, since he was so much a part of the spirit of getting this made and making it successful.
Well, Arthur was like a father to me, because Natalie Trundy played my mom, and she was his wife, so I guess I'm family. That's my memory of him. And he was also a man who was courageous enough to let a young stuntman become an actor, and I'm very grateful to that, because it was the first speaking role that I had in this business, and I've been still doing it for 25 years, so I'm very grateful to him. Anybody else?
Well, I met him after I was cast in the film in his office at the studio, and spoke with him briefly, and met his wife, and didn't realize his wife was also in the film until we showed up to do the film. She was there. I said, "Didn't I meet you before?" I said, "Yes, I'm Natalie Trundy." I said, "Oh, you were in the movie? You were an actress?" I said, "Oh, I didn't know." A moment of embarrassment. But I met Arthur just that one occasion. He was very nice, very gentle man, and welcomed us and all. And then the next thing I know, he passed away. Didn't see him except that one time. He's always in and out.
Was it the intent to follow the book, Monkey Planet? And was Pierre Bull involved at all in the movie?
No, Pierre Bull was not involved. Pierre Bull, in the early stages, tried to be involved. When Rod Serling was working on the screenplay, Pierre Bull would be in contact with Arthur Jacobs and gave him his ideas about Serling's script. Bull was not very happy with the way the film was developing in the writing stages. Rod Serling was the first writer to work on the script for Planet of the Apes, and of course he was best known for The Twilight Zone. But he had a very distinguished career before that, writing for live television drama. He wrote Record for Heavyweight and Patterns and a number of very respected live television dramas in the 50s and 60s, and had a great reputation as a science fiction author as well. And he was the first one to try to adapt Bull's book, and tried to stay fairly close to what Bull had done. I mean, he made some changes, but the script really didn't gel very well as a piece of cinema. It really didn't translate. Yeah, it didn't translate, trying to go very literally the way that Bull had written it. And even so, Bull was not happy with the way Serling's screenplay was turning out. And he had at one point had sent about 20 or so pages of a rough draft for Arthur Jacobs to read of his own version of the script for Planet of the Apes. And it read much more like a novel. I mean, long expositions about the technology that was being used and the kind of things that you can get into in a book that you really can't have in a film. And then he objected particularly strongly to the Statue of Liberty scene, which is probably the most famous and loved scene in all the series, and is one of the best known scenes from all the 60s film. He wrote a letter to Arthur Jacobs after he read the script and he read the idea, and he said that he was dissatisfied with it and didn't like the ending, and then went on to write more in the letter. And then he came back to Statue of Liberty and he said, the more I think of it, the more I am convinced that it is a temptation from the devil! Exclamation point, underline. He was very, very adamant. And he said it was a temptation from the devil that would annoy and confuse the common man. And he was very strongly opposed to them including that scene. And then, of course, the scene was included. And then after, what happened was, when they were trying to stay closer to Bull's idea of having the apes with a modern technological civilization, the budget estimate was about $10 million. And at that point, Warner Brothers was supposed to do the picture, and Blake Edwards was supposed to direct. And they just were not willing to spend that much money for $10 million. So what they did was rather intelligent. They decided to go with the look of the film that they wound up using, which was the primitive look and look more like the apes were living in, kind of like stone dwellings. And that cut the budget in half, because you didn't have to deal with building sets that looked like a modern city but down to the scale of apes. So that cut the budget in half, and then they were willing to do the film over at Fox. And by that time, Michael Wilson had taken over the writing of the film. Now, Michael Wilson had written the film for the screenplay for Bridge on the River Kwai, which was another Pierre Boulle book. But at the time, he was blacklisted because he was an unfriendly witness to the McCarthy hearings, and he couldn't work openly in Hollywood. So the movie was actually credited to Pierre Boulle, who got the Oscar for the screenplay. And the big joke was everyone knew that Pierre Boulle couldn't speak English, and there was no way he was going to write an Oscar-winning screenplay in English. And then Michael Wilson took over the script, and really what was on the screen was really Michael Wilson's work, even though Rod Serling gets equal credit. And a lot of the themes in Serling's earlier work, like Bridge on the River Kwai, A Place in the Sun, and Lawrence of Arabia, really had made him the perfect person for the project. He was very progressive, which is one of the reasons why he got in trouble during the McCarthy era. His films dealt with class, dealt with ethnic conflict, dealt with gender conflict, dealt with political issues in a very intelligent way. And he was really the perfect choice for the film and did a really excellent script. But by that time, they had veered very much away from Boulle's ideas. And Boulle was very involved at that point. Boulle later wrote a script for a sequel called Planet of the Men, in which Taylor and Nova have a child, and their son leads a revolt of the humans that go back and take over the apes and destroy the apes. And the idea was, whereas Planet of the Apes, the tables had been turned, Planet of the Men, it would turn them back the other way. And Arthur Jacobs rejected the script, saying that it wasn't cinematic, but oddly enough, a lot of the ideas that were in Planet of the Men wound up in other films in the series in different ways. So it had more cinematic quality than Arthur Jacobs had probably originally thought. But that was really the extent of Boulle's involvement. He really grew disinterested after that.
I have a question for you, Aaron. Just a thought. Pierre Boulle was French, right?
Right.
The Statue of Liberty was given to us by who?
By the French.
And you probably was pissed off that it was all broken up, right?
I don't think he objected that problem. I don't think he objected to the idea. I think he was pissed off that they didn't take care of it properly.
Yeah. We figured it out problem.
But see, with digital technology, though, I mean, you could now, do a version of Planet of the Apes and go back and take it, put it all around the country. Taylor could be a Frenchman, and then, it turns out that the Planet of the Apes, he's in France. You could see the statue of, instead of the Statue of Liberty, you could see, the Eiffel Tower on the beach. Mon Dieu! You could, have him see the Sphinx, and the Chaya a la moon! All kinds of stuff, it's a world of possibilities.
I got a little quick comment to make. I actually have never been to one of these before. This is really overwhelming for me. And the only reason why I'm here is because there's a child actor that I worked with many years ago, 16 years ago. And we did a little film called Tut and Tuttle. If anybody in this room remembers that film, you can leave now. Okay? It was a little TV film, wasn't bad. But it was directed by a young man who was actually younger than me. At 28 years old, I thought that was absolutely outrageous that somebody younger than 28 could actually direct a movie. And I said, what does this guy know? How could he possibly direct a movie? And this young man's name was, hang on, I'll get it. He directed this thing about astronauts, Apollo 13 or something like that. Ronnie Howard.
Ronnie.
25 years old he was, and he already had 20 years experience in the business, and that's where Eric and I met. And 16 years later, Eric calls me up and says, my God, you're still alive. Thanks a lot. And that's why I'm here. So a child actor has done well for himself because I've doubled probably 500 child actors in my career, and I can name on one hand the number who have actually made something of themselves, and he's one of them. And I'd like to give you guys a chance to give him a round of applause. That's enough of that now. Thank you.
Next question? Yeah, oh.
Where are the female gorillas and orangutans in any of those groups? I always
wonder.
wonder.
That in my book.
I mean, what happened to? Were they even planned to have?
Why do you think you're so pissed off?
No, it's just funny. I mean, they just see all the chimps, females, but you don't see one single female gorilla or
It's a good question. I really don't have a good answer for it.
We were gay.
We're parts of the potato.
Boule's book was called La Planeta Song, which means Planet of the Gay Apes, actually. It's translated all these years.
You notice the chimps were the more happy group. The gorillas were always going to war. You can figure that out.
But that makes Zara a very tired ape. I'm not really sure the reason for it, to tell you the truth. And it's a very, I mean, you look at the films and the TV series, and it's a very notable absence. As a matter of fact, there were other, I mean, I've heard of other fans who were wondering, you know, where are the women amongst the orangutans and gorillas? The only idea that I can have of it, and I don't know that it was an explicit choice, okay, we're not going to have any women. They had Kim Hunter as Zira, who was an excellent character and a very, I mean, if you're looking for female role model, she was about as good as you can get. She was intelligent and courageous, and she had good values, and she was strong. And there was Lisa, who was in Conquest and Battle. But aside from those, there really weren't any female apes. And the only explanation that I can come to is that really it was, you know, the power struggles in society that were being played out in these apes movies. For whatever reason, consciously or not, the producers and the writers pictured these as power struggles that were the domain of the men, and that it really wasn't where women were involved. And I don't think that they explicitly went out to be sexist and to eliminate women. I just think it was the way they thought about these kinds of issues and the debates and all. And it might be, you know, I'd have to look back. I don't know how many women, for instance, were in Congress at the time, or had that large-scale public role. It might just have been a case of, you know, the politics in American society were dominated by the men, and these people were writing about American society, so that's the way it happened on the Planet of the Apes as well. I wish Mort Abrams were here, because he could speak to that a lot better than I could. I don't know if anyone here has any ideas about that.
What I saw in it, Eric, was that, and in fact this was partly addressed in the book too, the chimpanzees were becoming more of the original thinkers and more progressive than the other two ape groups. And I think that along with that would come the quality of the female chimpanzees.
Okay, so the chimps were just more advanced and more...
Yeah,
more,
they had talked about, they had talked even in the book, I believe, about the orangutans being copiers. They copied everything that they had learned from the past, and the chimpanzees were now branching off, and that's why they feared the chimps so much.
Right.
Because of all those original progressive thoughts.
Right. Now, I'm actually curious, Bobby and Austin, if you know anything about this. Paul Dane, who was the writer for Beneath Escape and Conquest, had originally written a story treatment for Battle for the Planet of the Apes. It was very different in tone. It was much darker. It was much more violent. And they didn't use that. And I have a few ideas about why, but I'm wondering if you knew anything about the development of the script, or how those decisions were made, and why they didn't go with Paul Dane's script and they went with Joyce Corrington and William Corrington instead.
No, I don't know anything about that. In fact, you mentioned that to me before, I think the last time when I first met you. I didn't know that there was a prior script. I just knew the one that I worked with. I didn't know there was a film prior to that.
No, I didn't have any knowledge of that either.
Did you have a sense, when Conquest was filmed, it was very, the writer and the director, J. Lee Thompson, went out to allegorize the Watts riots. It was a film that was explicitly and deliberately based on the Watts riots. And it was in many ways a very radical film in which the hero was the leader of the slave revolt. And when the studio saw the print, they were very, very nervous about it, thought they had a very controversial picture on their hands. As a matter of fact, there was a screening in Phoenix that there was a preview screening before it came out, and parents apparently pulled their kids out of the theater and said that it was too violent and were very upset about it. And the studio made J. Lee Thompson edit the film to take out some of the violence and to tone down the ending so it wasn't as radical a message, and to soften it a bit. And his impression was that at that point Fox just wanted a kid's picture. They wanted something that was that at least stayed in tone with the earlier films, so it wasn't as dark and heavy. And I don't know if you had that sense from Fox too, working on the picture, or maybe this was something that Thompson got more directly, that they wanted to lighten the tone of it, or make it something that was more accessible for families and all. Is that something that you had an idea?
Well, the philosophy at Fox at the time was to appeal more toward the family, because I had done a film prior to that called Eli and Roger of the Skies, which had a very dark ending. It was a very dramatic film about a man who finds himself suddenly a single parent in the 30s, and the only thing he could do well was fly. And at the end of the movie, Eric Shea, the little boy in the film who ended up doing the Pasadena Adventure and another number of other Disney films, for whom I doubled, was left an orphan because his father goes up and commits suicide. And this was 1971, and it was a film that was directed by a very successful man and written by an 18-year-old kid named Stephen Spielberg, thank you very much, and they changed the ending of that film, so maybe there was a push with Fox at the time to stop doing the films. They had come out with French Connection, which is a very violent film, and I think they had come under some fire to appeal more to the audiences because Disney was doing so well and they wanted to be a little bit more like them. So that might have had some influence.
I think actually part of it, I mentioned this in the book, is that it came out in 1973, that's when Battle was released. And, you know, we had been involved in the war in Vietnam for almost a decade, and there was a lot of internal conflict in the country, not only about Vietnam, but also about the civil rights movement and a lot of domestic political issues. And the sense that I got from talking with J. Lee Thompson from watching the film is that they wanted to take it into the direction where you could finally have the possibility of having some kind of reconciliation. That there was some kind of happy ending, that if not a sweet ending that everyone could enjoy and feel good about, that at least there was a possibility that there could be reconciliation and peace one day. And Dane's original script didn't allow for that at all. And by the end of Battle, there's, the lawgiver says, I look at apes and humans living in friendship and peace. And there's a sense that maybe everyone will be able to get it together. And I think there was a trend, I don't know how large it's been, but there were a number of movies at the time that dealt with somehow forgiveness of past wrongs and people trying to come together and to make their peace with each other. And my hunch on that is that it was an attempt to, after all these years of violence and these films, in which the alienation between the characters was so, was so large and it seemed like it couldn't be resolved, that it was an attempt to at least find some way of having the suggestion that there could be a happy ending for the country. I'm not sure if I'm right about that, but that's my take on it. And it's all real well detailed in the book.
Yeah, I think it was like the third movie, Escape. Rodney McDowell took over as producer, I think it was, or director.
No.
No, he didn't. Okay. Anyway, he was in all the films, right?
No. He was in 4.
I was just wondering how much, did he have any creative input on the direction or the script in those movies?
I don't know, but I interviewed the associate producer, Frank Capra Jr. of the last 3 films, and the writer of the 5th film, Joyce Corrington, and J. Lee Thompson, who directed the 4th and 5th film. And none of them mentioned Rodney McDowell as having taken a hand in the direction of the series. I didn't get that sense, which he very well might have had some kind of input on it, but if that's the case, I didn't come across any suggestion of that.
So he never did anything more than the acting?
Yeah.
I know personally in conversations with Rodney that he took great joy in doing the character because it's so different from characters he's normally done. Any actor normally likes pushing the limits, going across all the boards, so to speak, playing everything. It's kind of a discovery process, and he discovered a great deal in doing this non-human character. It was completely groundbreaking for him.
Actually, sorry. I've got a question for Buck and for Booth, and the kind of questions are the reverse of each other. For Buck, I'm wondering, when you all worked on this film, did you have a sense that you were at the beginning of something that was going to become such a phenomenon? And Booth, I'm wondering, doing the television series that followed up the films, was there a lot of pressure on you all to kind of keep that, that reputation, alive?
No, well, actually, I don't know if any actor really works on a film and say, oh, this is, maybe the producer thinks it's the greatest film ever made. But an actor to an actor, it's hey, it's a good part, it's a job, I'm working, hey, and you do the best you can and try to create a character within the limits of what the picture is about and understand what you're doing and just do your part of it. But I had no idea that this would be such a, a film that people would remember, and the way I can tell is, I did it's amazing. Why did Cool Hand Luke, many years ago, and Paul Newman was in that, and George Kennedy was doing this big scene one time, and Sacker and I were looking at it, oh, geez, can't do better than that. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, God, this is bad. He got the Academy Award. He got the Academy Award for the part. So, you know, we just kind of, we do the best we can, you know, and the director kind of guides us, because he knows what, he's got the overall picture of the film, and that's, he's got a direction where the whole thing has to go, and you've got to fit within that framework. But I had never, in another film I did, which, I don't want to get away from Planet of the Apes, but it's kind of the same thing. I'd done, you know, actors just starting out say, well, how do you start, how do you do, what do you do? I just did plays, you know, and the years when I first come out here from New York, I worked in plays in New York, and it was a normal thing for me to go into little theaters and play. And I did plays, and one time I went on an audition for a Clint Eastwood picture, and the casting director looked at me and says, I saw you in The Wall. So played by John Hersey at the theater. He says, you don't have to read for me. He says, got a part for you. I didn't have to read. And it was, which is, you know, crazy, you know. And today everyone reads. One word you read, you audition for it. Anyway, I did the movie. It was The Outlaw Josie Wales. And I just, nothing great about it, a cowboy picture. And it's turned into a classic. And the way I can tell is by the residuals I get. I mean, they show that, the Outlaw Josie Wales, and of course Planet of the Apes. They must show that 100 times and more, you know, since I did them. Of course, I don't get the residuals I was getting, but I, you know, still get something fairly respectable.
Not to mention the fact that Planet of the Apes had the effect on all the different countries too. I mean,
oh, I know. I mean, we just.
I mean, it had an effect all over the world. I think it was the social issues in it. I think that transcended language really.
It was true.
Was that much on the
I think I said enough. You can have.
Well, I think we were all cognizant of the great success of the first picture, certainly, maybe one or two of the others that followed. But I've always felt the series was not handled as well as it could have been. They had a ready-made audience. There was no pilot made. They didn't have to worry about any of that. Simply went into production. And the first story and some of the others were very good. Some of the others weren't. And I don't even remember the names, so I can't name names, of course. I think maybe the people at the top weren't comfortable with that kind of material. When you're doing something weird and eerie, something that Edgar Allan Poe, you must have someone with that type of feel. Someone like Ray Bradbury, for example, who was comfortable with that kind of thing. Otherwise, the stories become silly. They don't have the content they ought to have. The first picture, if you remember, they still talk about it, and still it's an impressive thing. They had something to say, and they said it very well. And I think some of our episodes might not have had that content.
And we care about
the
character.
That's right. They have to be developed, they have to carry along, and they have to mean something. Otherwise, it becomes monotonous.
I have a question for all of you out there. Why are you here?
We love Apes.
Well, were you young at the time and it just caught you? Because what we're going through today is this tremendous public appeal to make the media more responsible for the content of their material, to make Hollywood responsible for not causing society to emulate them in a negative way. And I don't see any mass murderers out there. Well, maybe the guy in the back there. No, that's right, you're right. But there's been, in the last few years, such a tremendous upheaval with Congress and with others to make Hollywood more responsible for giving good positive messages and positive role models. And you're all here today because apparently we did something right. And I think that Hollywood does that from time to time. I wish we can do more of it in the future. So Thank you again for showing us that we're doing something right.
Well, you know that the only good human is the dead human, was it?
Don't get offended, Mike.
Nourish young people with that.
Austin, can you talk a bit about working on the cartoon series? Because a lot of people forget about the Return to the Planet of the Apes cartoon show. Started in the fall of 1975 and ran for a year. And so if you can speak a bit about your work on that.
Well, first of all, I was quite surprised that they called me to do that, to do voices for the cartoon. That was, there was never an inkling that I would be involved in the cartoon. And actors don't turn jobs down. So I said, oh yes, I'd love to do it. And I had to switch voices and do an astronaut human, and then do what was supposed to be a gorilla, an ape. And I had to find two voices for it. And I remember asking the director what he was in the booth. Would he want, how would this gorilla talk? Does he have an American accent? What, you know, where does this gorilla raise? Is he an American gorilla? Is he here legally? I mean, what is that? I wasn't sure. I really did that. And now I was born in the Caribbean, in Trinidad, not Jamaica, Trinidad. We're Trinidad and Tobago. And we speak English, that's our language. And I said, can I do an accent? He said, what kind of an accent? I said, Caribbean. He said, Jamaica? I said, no, not Jamaica, Trinidad. I said, that's my, he said, you don't have an accent. I said, yes, I said, you don't have an accent. You have a cadence. I said, oh, okay. And I said, well, should I do that with the gorilla? What should I do? He says, well, I don't know, let's try it. And we tried it, and I put a sort of a slight twist on the accent to make it sort of Caribbean. And he said, yeah, I think I like that, I don't know. I said, you know, we're full of monkeys down there, we're going to do fish. So then he said, no, I think maybe we should go, let's make him non-regional. So we did that. It was a very slight twist to the accent, and some words that will sing-songy, you know. And even to my ear, I didn't think it worked either. I thought it might be confusing back then. See, today people are more used to the accent, everything. They come back to Jamaica, blah, 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 the commercials. People are more familiar with the music and everything, the reggae and all that sort of thing. But I think back then, it would have been too foreign to the ear. So we changed it and made it non-regional. You can't place it. It's not New York, it's not the South, it's not the Caribbean. It's just understandable. And that was my experience. Because it was strictly a voice thing, you know. I wasn't seeing it. So that was it.
When they brought you into that, were they aware of your work on Battle?
Yes, they were. I think, well, that was the reason they called me, because I had been in the, you know, I was been in the battle.
Now, Bobby, how about you and your involvement with the television series? Was it the same thing that they knew you had worked on Battle, and so they wanted to bring you along to the continuity? Or?
Well, like I mentioned earlier before, anybody here getting tired? Might get scratched to a couple of jacks, maybe? Okay. I've been very blessed because my career has been really revolving around the fact that I'm 4 foot 9 inches tall. Sorry, I'm 4'10". I lied. Because child labor laws are structured in such that children can only work 8 hours a day, 9 hours now, they needed someone under 5 foot tall to play kids. And they knew that I had done a reasonably good job, and I worked cheap on Battle. And so they brought me back for the series because it was Fox, and they knew me pretty well. And they needed someone who could sit in the chair for 3.5 hours and not complain too much, and then still go out and work a 12-hour day. So basically, 25 years later, I'm still the most gullible guy under 5 foot tall in town. So that's why I keep working, and that's the same thing with the Apes.
Any other questions? All right, does anyone have anything to add? Bill?
Yeah. What we were talking about before with the Planet of the Apes series and some of the little problems that it had that eventually led to the cancellation of the series. This may be kind of a little bit of a convention first here, but I had privy information from Gene Roddenberry. My audition for the television series was in Gene Roddenberry's home. He was beginning to become involved with the Planet of the Apes project. He knew the producers of the series. And the word was that if they had been picked up after January, Roddenberry was going to be directly involved Westheimer Optical Company from Star Trek. He was going to go back for a restructure to give it a bigger, more kind of a epic look to it, wherever possible for television. And this was from Gene's own mouth in his home.
Would have been an interesting ape trek. All right, well, unless anyone else has any other questions or comments to make, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I mean, as an author and also as a fan, it's great to have gathered you all together and to, to share your time, and you've been all very gracious and kind, and I'm glad you could make it. And if, I think the convention is closing down soon, but if people have any questions, we might be able to stay around a little while longer back in the other room, and you can always buy the book. I'll be here tomorrow as well, and I'm not sure if any of these gentlemen, besides Bill, will be here tomorrow, but if you want to come back, there's more stuff going on tomorrow at the convention. There's a costume contest, there's of course the props display, and all the people selling a lot of neat stuff that no one can afford. So if there's anything else, let us know, and otherwise, thank you very much for coming.
One more thing too, Eric. One more thing. I planned to be here in full makeup and costume today, but I had some difficulties with a commercial thing that we were working on that got me here a little bit late. So if anybody wants to come out tomorrow, full makeup and costume, all original Roddy McDowell. Hair pieces, costume, feet, the entire 9 yards.
Boy, is he gonna stink. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Sing a song. What do you want me to sing? And don't say the monkeys sing. Yes, we have no bananas. You know, I never knew how that song went. I'll do my Paul Williams impersonation if you want. Okay. The morning is just begun for Leo. White leaves and promise. All right, enough of that. Are you trying to sound muffled or? Beware the beast, Jeff Kruger, for he is the devil's paw. Alone among God's angels, he writes for sport, or lust, or Terry Hogness. It takes about 3 hours. You look like that guy? Oh, look like that guy. Much better looking, of course, but more or less. Right.
And it's important.
Right.
Stay in shape. The better condition you're in, the more you're going to enjoy life. You know?
Right.
And I can work.
Right.
If I wasn't in shape, I couldn't do some of the work I'm doing. I did a picture last year in Romania in the winter, cold of the winter. Didn't bother me at all. Wow. I went right through it, like it was nothing.
What picture was that?
Well, it's a thing that went right directly to video.
Oh, okay.
I played Geppetto, the toy maker, in space. It's, what was the name of it? Time Warrior.
So you're still very active?
Neil Simon played.
Now you've changed. You gotta pluck out his eyebrows?
Don't laugh, I actually do that sometimes. Am I hurting you?
No, not at all.
No, you don't realize it's... there are people that just love this, adore this.
Yeah, yeah. And, I'm like that too. I grew up as a kid loving this stuff. And it's such a thrill to meet you, a creator, was part of what, I love so much growing up. I mean, it's just wonderful.
Because you're thrown. I've never, done anything like this. It's a routine.
That's the thing of nail polish and everything, so even the men in front of the apes get the beauty treatment.
I'm not a leading man, but I'm very pleased to watch it. Thank you very much.
It's 10384 Sunny Vista. Sunny Vista too with Randy Campbell. And
Progress. Held on the top of Plan 9. I come to arrest you.
how are you?
The radio company.
That's right. Yes. Oh, just okay.
Okay.
Another one? Okay.
Real hard shell players out of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you have the promotional short for Logan's Run? Have you seen that?
The promotional short?
Yes.
You mean like a trailer for it?
No, not the trailer, the promotional short. I've got it.
Okay, I think I might have that on Super 8 film because Thunderbird Films that did Super 8 reductions, they... Well, did you know me? Did you meet Bill? Did you meet Bill?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the little ones that rob the bottles of hard never did.
Me?
Yeah.
Put this in my camera.
Get him.
Well, hopefully the economy will.
And then, I don't know, I think it's worth it. I read a letter to them. We'll see if...
Are they the right size shoe? Which size shoe do you wear? Yeah, it's the hard part. You gotta really struggle with it. You may have to push your foot in the front, and but did you get the back up on your foot? Sometimes you roll down on the back. I think that. No, that goes on the inside. Yeah. Okay. Snap together. Take up the slack, and then you connect these, and they have to tuck inside.
Where, snap here, but I don't see snap on the outfit though. It's on the...
Oh, okay. They don't even have the straps. See, mine has, the principals had the straps.
This one has a strap, the other one
It
doesn't.
pants down and they boot up. That's a mismatched set.
Yeah.
Now he finally got a
Gosh, I wonder if that
leather
was in
stamp.
the last
Probably not. Probably for...
It's $25. You quoted him the wrong price.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, do you trip as you go along?
Yeah, I use very short sections. I get it kind of fuzzy. I like it fuzzy.
All right, so we're looking at...
Yeah. I try to get as close as I can to the original
I actually
movie.
have, you know what, I have.
You get it. Because this was dipped in vape on a wing cleaner, and they are a little bit stiff, so you have to comb it out anyway, so they're a little bit fluffy.
All right.
The longer hairs here go over the ear, and that kind of helps hold the plate, let the chip ears stick out. That's the way they're designed. Look over the ear. Because like Zira, that was based into her dress, and since the dress came out from under the costume, you couldn't get rid of it. This is in much better condition, but then this one's had a lot less wear.
Yeah.
Eric, I want to see you do the electric slide in this.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to hang on. Yeah, but it tears the hand hair off too. I just redid it.
Okay.
When you stretch, the lace can't stretch far enough.
Can you one of us both over here?
For me, the piece was fine. It was that drop that was terrible. But the piece was fine. But we just right over. Get your hand out of your pants! We had to set up there. We got to ride it for free.
Wait a minute.
Want to try that one again?
All right, start again.
Okay. Well, why don't you give a 3 count whenever you want it?
All right, 1, 2.
The shirt keeps coming out of the pants. Oh, video.
All right.
Okay. Count to 3.
1, 2, 3.
Little makeup stains on the thing. I'll put a fingerprint here for him just for the hell of it, you know. All my best to you, Terry, and thanks for your support. Sorry about the makeup stains under this section. I'm signing this while in full makeup and costume. He'll love that.
He'll know it because I'm taping it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go, Terry. When you get a copy of this, there's the makeup stains right there. And here I am, and here's the reason why you're getting stains all over your signature. But it'll just add to the value of it in the future, so enjoy, my friend.
Stop. Okay. What would you like us to do? We're only semi-intelligent apes.
Looks like you're going to jump.
Never mind the fact that he wrote a book. He copied it from the humans.
Actually, that looks like that'd be a good picture.
The will of God. And if it is man's destiny that he be dominated, it is God's will that he be dominated with compassion and understanding. So, cast out your vengeance. Tonight, we have seen the birth of the planet of the apes.
Caesar, this is not how it was to be.
In your view, or mine?
Violence prolongs hate. Hate prolongs violence. By what right are you spilling blood?
By the slave's right to punish his persecutors.
Caesar, I, a descendant of slaves, am asking you to show humanity.
But I was not born human.
I know, the child of the evolved apes.
Whose children shall rule the earth.
For better or for worse?
Do you think it could be worse?
Do you think this riot will win freedom for all your kind? By tomorrow
it will be too late. If a tiny, mindless insect like the emperor moth can communicate with another of its kind over a distance of 80 miles...
An emperor ape might do slightly better.
Slightly? What you've seen here today, apes on the 5 continents will be imitating tomorrow.
With knives against guns? With kerosene cans against flamethrowers?
Where there's fire, there's smoke. And in that smoke from this day forward, my people will crouch and conspire, and plot and plan for the eventual day of man's downfall. The day when you finally and self-destructively turn your weapons against your own kind. The day of the writing in the sky, when your cities lie buried under radioactive rubble, and the sea becomes a dead sea and the land is a wasteland, out of which I shall lead my people from their captivity. And we shall build our own cities in which there will be no place for humans except to serve our ends. And we shall found our own armies, our own religion, our own dynasty. And that day is upon you now! But now we will put away our hatred. Now we will put down our weapons. We have passed through the night of the fires, and those who were our masters are now our servants. And we, who are not human, can afford to be humane. Destiny is the will of God. And if it is man's destiny that he be dominated, it is God's will that he be dominated with compassion and understanding. So, cast out your vengeance. Tonight, we have seen the birth of the planet of the apes.
Howdy McDowell by my truck, take 1.
When you truly get to know and trust a person, you cannot help but like him. Now, when we get to know and trust your people, then we shall become equals and remain so until the end of time.